Alrighty. Hello, everybody. Hi, everybody who is watching this live on Facebook, and to our podcast listeners. Well, this morning's been one of those crazy mornings. So we've arranged to do this podcast many times with Melissa. Then my electricity was completely cut off. There's Energex out the front. And then my phone wasn't tethering to the computer. And so now I am finally got that up and running. I'm hoping the internet is going to be okay from my phone. And I do apologize if the sound quality isn't as good, but we're doing what we can do. Hey, Mel.
Of course, this is how we roll, isn't it?
This is how we roll, exactly. So I have asked Melissa to come onto the podcast. She actually spoke in my Aveda Alchemist group last year, and she was just amazing. And all the girls absolutely loved her. We talked about really getting deep into what Melissa calls personal lies, which are like limiting core beliefs, talking about breath work and how to access those personal lies and how to move through them and how to understand them. So I thought it'd be really cool to get Mel on the podcast and also live streaming into the Facebook group to share her amazing wisdom with all of us. Melissa Melrose, who we have with us, is a qualified rebirthing practitioner, yoga teacher, intuitive life coach, and holistic health coach. She has continued studied in many areas to deepen her knowledge, to be able to heal herself and to heal others. So from holistic health to yoga to intuitive life coaching, mediumship, chakra cleansing, and meditation. Growing up, she had her own struggles, which I'm sure we'll hear about throughout the episode. But being an empath, and today you will also hear how, I guess I want to ask Melissa about what it's like being an empath and how you can control that sensitivity, but we'll get into all of those deep and wonderful questions. So welcome to the podcast, Mel.
Well, thank you. Finally, we've done it. I'm very impressed with ourselves.
I know, even despite all the obstacles we had to get through today, we are finally here online, ready to roll.
We're together.
We're together. I know, it's been too long. I would first of all love to ask you the rapid inspiration questions that I ask all of my guests, which is, what is your superpower?
Oh, my superpower. I always think it is my unconditional love.
Oh, beautiful. I love that. That is a beautiful.
I think being able to hold space with no judgment. I think that's a nice space that I really allow that for, I think, family and friends, but also my clients as well.
And that is such an important quality for a coach, to be able to hold space without judgment, because you meet all different people with different beliefs and ethics and all the things. So yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, I think a lot of times how people present isn't necessarily what they're actually going through. So sometimes you have to be able to move past, I suppose, the judgment, in the sense to actually really connect with that person and build a relationship, and they will be able to let their guard down to kind of let you in. And I think that's a really huge part of holding space for people.
Yeah, definitely. And what's your favorite quote or mantra at the moment?
Ooh. She didn't get me prepared for these.
I know, sorry, I didn't send you these. I was like, we're just going to have a cash conversation today.
It's cash conversation. Now she's whipping out these 10 questions on me. Mine used to be, life is a daring adventure or nothing at all. So I kind of still feel it kind of applies on a lot of levels, but I'm sure I could have got another one if I had have actually thought about it.
Well, if you have a think, let us know.
If something comes to me, I'm going to pull one out.
Yes. And what or who is inspiring you at the moment?
What did you say? What
or who is inspiring you at the moment?
Oh, I'm feeling really inspired. I've been working with one of my mentors and working right into sort of like how the genes express and the lineage of wounding and how we have carried that on. So I think working deeper into that unconscious part, that once we work through our own necessarily life wounding, how that it's expressed and what we've taken on from our generational patterning as well. So how that expresses as well in limiting us in presenting ourselves in life. So that's kind of what I've been inspired with at the moment.
Yeah, that the generational trauma patterning is so interesting. So I'd actually love to get into that later.
Yeah.
But first, I think if we can maybe get into what the rebirthing breath work is, because I know that's a big part of what you do. So actually, perhaps just tell us what you actually do first.
Well, I studied rebirthing 26 years ago. So breath work was when it was weird and woo-woo. That's when I sort of started doing breath work, where I was only 23 at the time. So we were like rolling ourselves up in mattresses, recreating birth trauma, really breathing through the depth in ourselves. But I don't really think I had the understanding at 23 how to hold space or integrate what I was experiencing. So I felt then it's taken me a really big journey to completely understand myself, to embody what I knew then. I knew it as knowledge, but didn't really know how to live it, not correctly. I don't think correctly is the right way, but to really embody it, to be able to hold space for other people. Because like we were talking about being an empath, I was still really locked into my own fear and would pick that up with everyone else, and still felt tapped into everyone else's trauma and problems because it was still within me. So I think for me, the journey has been of clearing my own self to be able to sit with anyone and not feel reactive, not be tapped into anyone else's energy but my own, and be really clear on who I am, because I've done the work for myself to be able to hold that for other people.
So at 23, what sort of steered you in that direction? Because that was, now I don't want to blow your whistle here. That was a while ago for you now.
That was a while ago, 50 this year. So yeah, I'm coming all back around again now.
Yeah, so you were just saying it's almost your 50th, and I was like, what?
Yeah, 50. I'm actually feeling really excited about 50. 50 is something that I feel the best I have, the most empowered that I ever have, the most embodied that I ever have. And, I always say this in a lot of my workshops. I'm like, I always thought when I got here that was going to be, whoa, and, the understanding of myself and how I feel in myself, that my life would be completely different. But it's actually very humbling, because it's not, I'm still doing the same thing, getting up, being a mum, life is the same, still doing the same business stuff. It's not like things have completely transformed necessarily externally, but how I view everything and the challenges in life and what I move through each day, I'm much more connected moment to moment with myself. So I think that is really, when we think about, it's never a destination, but getting to a space that you feel really, okay, I'm good here. I can really sit with myself and be with myself in my aloneness and my understanding, but still feel really connected to everything else. So it's kind of a really empowered place to be. I feel like the happiest and most peaceful I've ever been in my life.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And that gives us so much hope moving through to 50. And they do say, like, even Ayurveda speaks about transitioning into that more Vata stage of life when you really embody that women's wisdom, and, people or within the culture and surrounding would really respect the wisdom of a woman who is moving into those ages. But I will say, on more of a superficial level, like, you're an absolute bombshell and give Beyonce a run for her money. Like, anyone maybe who's watching this live on Facebook or on YouTube or whatnot, you can see, like, you're just an absolute stunning beauty, and definitely have, make 50 look 30. So
well, I'll take that. I think I have it in my genes. My mum looked amazing, even till like she passed at 70, she still looked amazing. So I think there's a bit of genes, and I've always kind of been, on that path that I do take really good care of myself. I think, understanding my body was a huge part of my journey, as well as in health, like, and really clearing my physical body, not just health-wise, but that comes with clearing your body emotionally as well. And I think the heaviness that we carry with our beliefs and our heavier emotions, and when we hold on to life, literally hold on, we're not really living. It really limits our life force and how we receive life. And I think that's been a huge part for me. I was the overgiver, giving person, but felt really trapped in my heavy emotions because they were so big, that as I've cleared them through, I've got lighter and lighter. And I think when you make space in the sense of those heavier emotions, which are darker, you breathing in the sense that we talk about in breath, it's the energy of breathing in, which we're inhaling and receiving, and when we're exhaling and releasing, there's a surrender in the release to make space for what, the truth of you, in the sense we let go to receive more. And I think that's been a huge clearing in. I even look back when I was really sick a few years ago, when I had breast implant illness, and even to now, like, my vitality has completely switched. And I think that's a huge part of vitality and energy, and that comes with health, but it also comes with your emotional well-being and what you're holding on to or what you're allowing into your life, like giving and receiving. I think that's been a huge shift, I think, in how vital I feel. And you would understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. Well, just taking it back to,
yes.
we often digress.
I do that. So just pull me back on target.
We do that. We love when we get into our chats, we're like, woo, takes us on a wild ride. But we were talking about, like, what steered you towards at 23 learning that the rebirthing breath work. Like, what's your story? What made you turn towards this?
From a really young age, I think actually from birth, really, I've always been very sensitive. I think that sensitivity, also being empath, and a lot of it also was steered by my trauma. And we talk about this a lot in breathing. Like, my birth trauma, firstly, was literally the start of my initiation, landing here in this little body of mine. And then I think it just, with how my mum supported me, the situation with my dad, and it was never, as traumatic as maybe some would have viewed, but for a really sensitive person that wasn't held in a certain way emotionally, it really can create. And I think this is what people really need to realize. Your life doesn't have to be the worst of the worst to have trauma or have to create beliefs for you to have to work through. We hold on to this, especially for that 0 to 7, and create a lot of who we believe ourselves to be from our environment. And when you're a super sensitive, then you become hyper aware as well of how to protect yourself and sort of morph into someone else. You create separated parts of yourself because who you are isn't safe to be. And you're always kind of morphing with your environment. And I found that my empathy was amazing, but it was so much so that I was taking on everything in my environment, making sure that I was safe. If mum was unhappy, then I felt responsible for that. So there was a part of me filtering that through my energy, and being really left, I suppose, at a young age with not knowing how to manage my big emotions, and then having to suppress them to look after or be safe in my environment, made me very hyper aware in everything. And it's taken me a long time to feel safe in my body and not to be looking around as an empath and a sensitive to be for the next thing that might, throw me off or steer me. And then so my boundaries were never really clear either to me, because I wasn't shown how to have those or feel emotionally safe to know the difference between somebody else and myself. So it was everything kind of more for me. So I think I was always, from a really young age, looking for why I felt the way I did, why I didn't feel deeply connected, why I felt so sort of unloved. You know what I mean? I was always sort of felt like I was seeking for this thing outside of myself to make me feel, I think it was, to be honest, safe, grounded, where I could feel like, okay, I'm here, I feel loved, And I think that sort of feeling not good enough or worthy enough was always running that show. And then my birth trauma underneath that was always like, if I'm fully alive, I'm going to die. So I created a lot of chaos from the chaos that I had in my life as a young child. I kept manifesting that in relationships or situations and circumstances, in friendships. I've always felt like I wasn't really seen or understood. So I think when I could understand that I was perceiving myself and my worth through everything outside of myself and could come back within, I was always searching. But I think when I was younger, I thought I was broken. So I was searching for the key. Now I realized the key was always within me. And I think breath work really triggered a lot of that in me. And that was when I was 23. But I did a lot before that. My stepmom's very spiritual. She was quite a mentor to me. She came into my life when I was 11. So she gave me a very different perspective. She handed me my first book. I think it was Dan Millman, The Weight of a Peaceful Warrior, when I was 10 or 11. So I'd always been walking this path. It's not like all of a sudden I became spirit. I don't think any of us just become spiritual. I think we're all walking a path to understand ourselves. And to me, that is the path. It's not like you have an awakening, but I think you have aha awakenings all through your life at different stages. It's not just one moment, but I think we become more aware when we realize we have the tools. We're the ones that needs to be self-responsible. We're the one that needs to go, okay, well, they've done the best they can, but now I need to change for myself moving forward. And I think kids really trigger that in a lot of people. We get to that middle age kids and we're like, holy shit, I'm reacting how I never wanted to be because I thought I was going to be better than my parents. And then you start mimicking and doing the same thing. And you're like, how do I end up here? I'm like, I'm not being a very good example. You're triggering the shit out of me. Like, so I think it's very humbling. Relationships firstly, and then we move into parenthood. And, you know, it all challenges us to see pieces of ourselves that are still separated. And I think when we get to bring them back into alignment, really stay in our body and breathe it through, we get to really start to understand how to hold ourselves through the emotions that we never felt safe to feel.
So you talk, I would love to talk more on that, about breathing through the emotions that we never really feel safe to feel, and how we can be aware of the emotions, because some people, they know they're pissed off, or they know they're feeling, you know, depressed or anxious, but they don't have that deeper understanding and awareness of where that emotion has really come from. So I guess I would love for you to elaborate more on being aware of what those actual emotions are and how you can work through them. But also you speak a lot on understanding and recognizing the personal lies within yourself, so how they all sort of tie together.
Well, I think a lot of us, and then we all talk about the mind and we all talk about the ego. I mean, we create that to protect ourselves. You know, we create logic when we get into that 7-year-old mind to why we feel the way we do. And then we validate that, our energy validates it, because we bring in these situations and we're like, oh, here we go, it happens again. So then we protect ourselves more, and we close off with each validation of the past, in a sense, to ourselves, because it keeps repeating. So we try and use our mind to understand how we feel. And I think a lot of people get caught in the trap of using a lot of mind techniques and doing a lot of things to kind of connect to their feelings. Because when we actually feel, it feels very out of control to feel our emotion. And really, emotion is supposed to be energy in motion. We're supposed to understand how we connect to our physical body to feel it. And if that comes through with tears or emotion, but most of us didn't have the space that was held for us as a child to go, it's okay to be angry. Don't project it, but you're okay to be angry in this moment. Or you're okay to be sad. I'll hold you here. What do you need from me? No one has ever really shown up for our needs in the moment. So the feelings get all distorted, and we have feelings because we had needs that needed to be met. And sometimes we needed to express those, and no one gave us the space to understand, oh, we're angry at the moment, or we're sad. What do you need from me? Because most of the time it was either don't cry, don't do this, don't feel that way because you're making me feel uncomfortable, or it's really inappropriate that you're having this tantrum at the moment because the agenda is the parent, the kid needs to be conformed in a certain way. So we were never really taught to understand who we are. So then we grow up and we don't feel safe in our bodies. So we use our mind to separate, in the sense, and protect ourselves to think about how we feel. And then we make logic as we have more understanding. We're like, of course, well, mum did this because of this and dad did this. And we kind of minimize how we felt through the understanding we create with our minds, but we still store those feelings on a cellular level in our body. It's like they're literally stored, where our body is a storehouse of locked emotions, where we've held our breath, we've suppressed the emotion, and we've locked it in. And that creates a frequency of energy where parts of us literally are connected to moments in time. And that energy stays and keeps us at a certain vibration. Sometimes we can move up with our mind, we feel really great, but then when something challenges us, where do we go? Straight back to that core, those core beliefs that we have, that underlying stuff that's always running until we're willing enough to turn around and face it in ourselves.
Absolutely. In Ayurveda, we talk about having a buildup of armor, and armor is just toxins. So, and you know, like you've done the Ayurvedic cleanse, and we talk about, you can have the physical toxins that can be from undigested food or environmental pollution or toxins that you're ingesting, whatever that might be. But you can also have a lot of mental and emotional armor. And just like you said, it stores in our body. And I like to say to my clients, like, we know this to be true because often it will manifest in really tight shoulders or a sore neck, or you get headaches all the time, or you have like sore hips. And it's the way that your body starts to store these armor, whether that be physical, mental, or emotional armor. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of work to be able to release that armor that has, you know, manifested in the body.
100%.
Yeah. And so even like whether you're doing like an Ayurvedic cleanse with me or in my 3 months to Thrive program, like I see a lot of women with hormonal conditions, but I always, in that program, we have like an Ayurvedic psychology session, which is understanding these core beliefs and what you call personal lies, so that you can release that energy. Because a lot of the time you're healing, you might be eating the right things, taking the right supplements, exercising, all of the things, but there's just something that hasn't really switched for you, hasn't really been able to excel your healing or to understand yourself and understand how to heal. And often it's this session that people have these really great breakthroughs, and they realize, oh my gosh, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't all about the food, or it wasn't like, you know, to depersonalizing, like it's this chemical sort of reaction happening within me, the hormones. And just as you said, like also we look at the mental prakriti, so moving from more of a tamasic, heavy, depressed state, maybe to more of a, you know, uplifting to a rajasic state, where that's just bringing some passion back into your life, or some movement, or initiating some transformation. Then you can move into a more of a sattvic state of mind, which is more that light, purity, and harmony. So, I mean, what I fully understand what you're talking about from like the Ayurvedic perspective.
It really does align a lot. And I think the beauty of the breath is it can take us to really deep places, but it also can help us day to day. Like you're saying, like when you come from that space where we first have to understand that our nervous system has automatic responses before we even realize. We're getting triggered all the time by life, by people, by relationships, by situations and circumstances. So before we even realize it, we're having a feeling, a reaction, and the mind will be the first thing that will tap in. So I'm always very big on people going, firstly, people can recognize, instead of identifying with their mind, it's like even stepping back a little bit to go, oh, I'm separate from my mind. We need our mind, obviously, it's got us to here, but when we're trying to move through limits and we're trying to see beyond the mind's protection, in a sense, we need to be able to step back and listen, observe the mind. And then we can come back into the body and really breathe into the body and go, oh yeah, okay, so my mind's saying this when I'm having a physical reaction. This is how we disconnect. A lot of people will leave their body. It's amazing. People will shut down, not breathe, and disassociate to their body. So a lot of the time when I'm working with people, especially one-on-one, it's getting them to stay in their body and to breathe when something is triggered. And the funny thing is, a lot of when I get right into those, tapping into those core, everyone gets really tired and starts yawning. And I'm like, perfect, because you want to check out.
You want to escape. Yeah,
I want to escape. We have these very subtle ways of disconnecting to ourselves or creating busyness, or we get tired, or there's all this chatter that happens that we identify with, then if we can just see that and go, oh, okay, I'm reacting here. How am I feeling? My mind, what am I saying to myself? How do I feel in my body? Breathe back into it so you can bring some presence to it. If we have no presence to anything, then we're just consumed and identified with everything that's happening. And then we get lost in this kind of chaos instead of going, okay, bring myself back to the present moment with the breath. What am I thinking first? Is that really the truth? If I come back into my body, I'm really just having a feeling, and come back and really breathe through the body to connect to that feeling first. That's the real simple of, quieting the mind and quieting the nervous system down. So as we build this connection, that we're not going to create chaos and in essentially abandon ourselves by making a shit show in the situation, where we can just take responsibility for it and show up for ourselves. But most of the time it's, in the busyness, the mind and the distraction and the chaos, that we shut down our feelings and then we work from that mind. But we're already activated. Our body's activated, our mind's activated. And then life is activated, not in a positive way. It's just re-traumatizing ourselves. And we're kind of living this loop of this pattern when we're challenged. So when we're challenged, if we can kind of quieten everything down, come back to the moment, then we can kind of work with ourselves moment to moment to build trust, to go into that depth of ourselves. And I think that's when we get to really do the work, unlock the armor, like you're saying, like that deep work, like when we did that month, it's like really unlocking when you quieten everything down, like you said, with the digestive system, quieten everything down, because we're not digesting, we get to listen, we get to feel, we get to heal that, because we're not creating chaos, we're not creating distraction, we're working within ourselves to quieten it all down so we can be that person to show up for our needs. We can move through the feeling and figure out what we truly need, because half the time we don't even know what we truly need. We think we know what we need and we push in this direction, but is it truly what you really need? Is it really what your soul needs, or what you think you need? Think you want, I should say.
So you help people to access their subconscious thought patterns and wiring through breath work, and also through coaching, like you combine the two, is it?
Yeah. So when I work with people, I work intuitively. I have always had this ability to deeply understand and pull people's lives together through conversation, to give them a different perspective of why they're actually doing things. And I think when we especially go back and talk about childhood and, situations and circumstances that happen, you can go, oh, of course I feel like this. You can kind of give yourself a little bit of grace. There's grace when we heal, because it's kind of like we recognize that, of course we feel that way. Of course we would have felt that way having that experience. But when the mind gets into it, we justify everything, that we don't have the grace to just go soften a little bit and go, of course I'm reacting like this. This is how I truly feel. It's validating those feelings that were never validated, but not holding on to them and sitting in the victim state of it and going, this is what happened to me. It's like, how can I breathe it through my body and really just feel it till I can surrender it over and release it, to then I can find this clarity and peace in my body that I can be with me. I don't have to keep reacting all of the time the same way and creating this huge reactiveness in my body, or going into these deep dark holes in myself. I mean, we're going to feel it, but if you know that you've shown up and long enough that you're going to be okay, you really allow yourself to go there. You allow yourself to be okay with emotion, and also give permission to everyone else around you that it's okay to be and feel how they are. You don't have to fix it. Or if you're reacting, why are you reacting? Maybe it's something in you you're still holding on to that person is showing you. So I think it's a deepening into how to hold yourself, to really clear and understand yourself and get to the core of what you really need.
And so for people who are listening and they know, like, we all get triggered by different things and we've all got things that we need to clear. But maybe now they're having more of an understanding that there is some subconscious patterning that happens throughout different circumstances and events throughout our lives. So can you give us some ways to be able to identify those personal lies, and maybe elaborate on what you call a personal lie? What is that?
Well, in Rebirthing, we talk a lot about personal lie, which is our core beliefs. So especially that creates in our subconscious through that 0 to 7 time, because we're perceiving ourselves through our environment, through our caregivers, through what happens, and we make perceptions of who we are in how we feel connected or unconnected, safe or not safe. So for me, it was like, I'm not good enough just as I am. So we create this not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm not wanted. And this can also come from birth. So we obviously, birth is a rites of passage, it's a trauma getting here, how our parents felt. We take a lot of that on unconsciously from the womb. And then we come into life, and then we sort of put into this environment out of this, womb-like environment to here. And then we're sort of navigating ourselves to really from our environment, how we feel in that. Then we sort of move into 7, create these logical ideas. So our beliefs kind of form, and then from when we're sort of in the unconscious, but then when we make logical understanding of it, we kind of not suppress it, but it goes, we don't understand it anymore. It just plays like this unconscious sort of like tape. It's like a tape that's sort of, playing over and over again until we can quieten our mind, or it happens enough that we recognize it, or have someone to sort of show us, disconnect us from the connection and identity to it. Because most of us just identify with it. We don't feel like it's just happening to us. Like we have no control. And I think that's what a lot of people think, that life is just happening to them, that they have no control. But it's when you can question and get really curious with yourself, and you can see, instead of blaming anyone outside of yourself or shaming yourself because you keep doing the same thing and you've tried really hard to get to a different space through mindset. Like it's like putting an affirmation over a gaping wound. If you're not going to actually look at the wound or heal the cut, or you're putting a band-aid over the top of it, it's not going to hold it together. Every time you run or move, it's going to open up, and everything's going to fall apart. So it's kind of like getting to the why this separated in the first place, why you got the wound, why you got the cut. Like, so stop putting band-aids over your life, and just start by firstly recognizing your thoughts, using very simple breath techniques to separate from your mind, so you can actually just feel how wired and anxious you might be in your body, because your mind is constantly stimulated, and then your body is in this constant state of fight, flight, or fawn. It's like you're actually kind of on all the time. So we always are in this unconscious survival pattern that the mind is stimulating. So when we can kind of come back in the body, even sometimes through the day, big deep breath with a big sigh, do that 3 times. I always get at the start for my clients to put into their phone, like we drink water. Everyone's so conscious now of drinking water. So when you drink water, why don't you breathe? Take a moment to come back into your body and just ask yourself, how am I feeling? No one asks themselves how they're feeling. Or if it is, it's because something's happening here and so-and-so's done this. And it's all about the external. It's not how you just truly feel to the external. How do you feel? When you can get under the reaction to connect and quieten the mind enough to get out of the story time, I was like, close the storybook. Come back to the body. The body is always going to be telling you. Really feel into what sensations, like you said before, sore neck, and just breathe into that and ask the question. I do a really cool technique with people, which sometimes we get so identified with the mind to understand the sensations in our body, the mind wants to give it a meaning. So we sort of quieten it down and we use a picture of a body, or you can just draw like a gingerbread man and just sit with your eye, like the gingerbread man, because I'm not very good at art. So just closing your eyes and just sitting with your body and noticing first, like physically, where you feel any tension or uncomfortable, and what does that look like in a shape, a symbol, or a color, and just draw that on there. And then so go through your whole body like that. And then you can write down, when you write the symbol down, and then write just one word of what that means to you. Because what we're doing is we're bypassing the mind, we're giving it a mental picture like that you've felt. And then that feeling has sort of like a shape, color, or a symbol that you can then understand maybe what the emotion is or the feeling is. And then I get people to journal on that. And I find it just bypasses the mind to get them into their body and to start to recognize sensations, simple sensations in your body, and just breathing into them. Because then when we get conscious with the breath, we can breathe into those unconscious, but the sensations, most of that's trapped emotion, it's trapped energy. You know, and we talk about the breath being energy in, energy out, like receiving the breath is the energy, it's life force energy is when we inhale. Some people can inhale fully, most people know. It gets like, you know, here, and it's get all caught up around the heart and the throat, and it gets really uncomfortable and it's contracting when they breathe and they feel tight. So work on slowly the inhale, deepening the belly into the chest, opening it up. I was working with a client on the weekend and I was like, you know, you need to breathe and start to breathe right down into your balls. Bring that like sexual energy up. So move it from, you know, that lower area, your genitals, to your belly, to your heart, and then breathe it back down and center the flow of your breath. So you're sort of starting to bring life force in. And then how does it feel to really let go of that? Like completely like unravel one bit at a time as you breathe it out. We restrict everything with our breath. And so we're restricting life.
Breath work is absolutely such a powerful, powerful tool. Like I've had so many transformations through doing regular breath work, and it's something that I do prescribe to my clients a lot when we're looking at dinacharya, their lifestyle and stuff like that. But just going back to accessing those personal lives, there's in like my Ayurvedic psychology sessions, like there's a sequence of certain questions that I will ask clients to really get them to understand what they could be. So we're uncovering those.
Yeah.
I know you have like a similar way. I know accessing, you know, through the breath to be able to be aware, to be able to listen, and to be
there's still a mental, I still agree with you. There's still a mental understanding to people, for people to access that, to have an understanding of why.
Yeah.
You know, I do a lot of questioning with the personal light. I have a certain, you know, set of questions and techniques that I take people through, and then also to clear that as well. So we ask the questions, but it's a thought form. A belief is a thought form we're attached to and identify that we truly believe is us.
Well, that's where I was going. I was going to ask like that rewiring of the subconscious mind. Like, how do you then, once you've opened the questions up, once you've discovered what like that personal I could be, then what? Like, where do you go from there? How do you transform that personal I into a new belief pattern?
Well, for me, I find with the identification of it so they have an understanding of what it is, when we can really see that and have a deep understanding of like, okay, so that's not me. I've created this idea of who I am. When we can sit back, all of a sudden we watch it in every interaction starts to play out in our life. And if that's not the truth and we truly understand what that is, then we can firstly start with the mind and use an affirmation then that really speaks to us when we notice ourselves expressing in a certain way from this belief. It's the same as we're talking about from the gene in the sense of like lineage stuff. We have identified this for a long time and we have cycled this through every interaction. This gets triggered when we feel a certain way about ourselves, and we show up unconsciously like this and are either waiting to be validated, and if we're not, somehow we'll sabotage it to then get the same result again, until we can really understand, oh, okay, right now I'm feeling not good enough. How can I encourage myself to be okay with that? Soften into that part of myself. For me, I do a lot of inner child work with people to really connect the moment in time that is really attached to what's being triggered. And then it's a real beautiful, loving way of seeing yourself as that child that wasn't necessarily showing up for. And when you can soften and have like a nearly an interaction with yourself, as in on the same timeline, even though your mind doesn't know it's not the same timeline. So you can do that healing in the sense from now, when you soften into your body and allow yourself to feel, we can really have that interaction and reparent ourselves from that moment. And then it's like you're bringing that kind of separated part of ourselves that's stuck in this moment in time energetically back into alignment with yourself. So I really see, and I talk to my clients, it's like all these inner children, these broken aspects of ourselves sit beside us. And then when we can acknowledge that they are there and their fears and exactly why they sit beside us, they just need to be acknowledged and loved and nurtured back into alignment and felt. So we use the breath to feel through when there's some deeper stuff and we get to see past our mind. But we can also use those techniques on a daily basis in the sense of when I'm reacting right now, I know it's not me. I have the awareness now. I have this belief. I'm calming myself in my body. Who's actually feeling this right now? Because you get to a stage that you know in your adult self, it's not serving me anymore. This I know is not the truth of who I am. So if I come back and just allow myself the grace to quieten everything down with the breath and be with myself in this moment, instead of shaming yourself because you're reacting the same way you always have, or you're trying to blame someone else because it feels uncomfortable and you don't want to feel it. If we can quieten it down and have some grace and go, who is feeling this? You know, who is moving through me in this moment that just needs to be recognized and lovingly nurtures back into my heart. That's how I've always done my inner child, is like a really beautiful way of reparenting yourself and using the breath to keep the calmness. So I use the breath in very simple ways, but then I also we do like long breath work where we're connecting the breath, and that takes you deep into your subconscious and you do a lot of release work in that. So there's a few ways I like to use the breath, but in my coaching, I'm very much about understanding ourselves beyond our beliefs and how to lovingly bring ourselves back into alignment.
Beautiful. It's like, I guess what sums it up is just about having that radical awareness and then being the observer of your life and your actions. And with that awareness, then you can create change and transformations and then live in this more, I guess, at ease, a more blissful place of being, a more sattvic mind.
And it's a moment to moment thing. I think what I've realized for me, it's not about, we're always going to have a past, but when's that triggered, we get to identify that it's just the past. When we want to control things because we're fearful of the future, because we've had this experience in the past, we're never really in the moment. So when we can kind of let go of the controlling of the future and we can heal the past, then we can be more present in the now and go identify with each moment, when am I in alignment, when am I out of alignment, when to breathe myself back into this moment. So then I'm always moving. I'm always checking in with myself. So I'm not flying out a million miles. My energy is in alignment. I'm in alignment with myself. Doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. If I feel centered and grounded, then I work from there. If I'm not, then I just bring myself back in. What do I need right now? It's asking in those moments, what do I need? And sometimes it's not what we think we have to do or what we create. And I always am really mindful of, with my clients, don't set yourself up to fail with having, okay, I need to meditate like this and I need to do this, then I need to do that, and have so much rigid structure. Because what will happen if you identify with that as being the way you navigate every day, what happens when it gets challenged or it doesn't happen or you can't do that? It's like, it's not attaching to anything. It's just being really aware at each moment and having this beautiful communication with yourself. and sitting in a clear space that you can then start to really tap into your gifts. You can really trust what's moving through you. You can trust that you're being guided, and it's not just in this physical form. We can open up to all of who we are, to more of our soul experience, than being more just physically stuck and trying to control everything from fear.
Absolutely. So I suppose to wrap it up, I mean, it's been such an amazing conversation. I love these conversations with you. We could go on forever. But for our listeners, what would be your top 3 tips on just cultivating more awareness within yourself so that you can hear and recognize those personal lies?
I always like to equate it to moment to moment. And I always say would you leave a baby sitting in a cot and not check on it? Like, they have basic survival needs. Okay, if it's crying, then you pick it up and you nurture it. If it needs changing or it needs feeding, it's a very simple thing in tending to yourself. It's like, don't go through the whole day without checking in. Don't get up in the morning. When you wake up, the first thing you can do is breathe into your body. Just take a moment. How am I feeling? And just feel that through your body as you just breathe in, breathe out, and calm the day. You don't have to overanalyze it, but just sit with it and allow it to be okay. Okay, I'm just feeling a little bit anxious this morning. Okay, I'm just going to breathe with that. I don't have to change it. What do I need right now? And even if you need to just breathe that in and just give yourself a moment. Like, I'm busy. Most of my stuff is moment to moment, in the car, on the toilet. It's like, in the morning, like, I don't have hours to meditate. I don't have hours to do rituals, but I'm very connected to myself in every moment. And I ask, when I breathe in the morning, what serves me right now? What do I need? And then I think it's just throughout the day, checking in and being very mindful. Use a minute to take to breathe. Notice if your mind's really activated and it's just going, okay, obviously when my mind is doing this, I'm having a feeling. So instead of identifying with my mind, what if I sit back and just observe what it's saying? Breathe back into my body and go, what am I feeling? Where is it sitting in my body? Start with that simplicity of, where am I feeling it in my body? Sitting back from the mind so you can calm the nervous system, calm the mind, and you're going to get a more clear message onto really what's going on with you. And I think when you can come from there and build that with yourself, then you start to question deeper. You have the safety in yourself that you're like, okay, I'm going to show up. I'm not going to go off and create chaos. I'm not going to shame myself, and be in a really kind of curious but loving awareness of everything that you notice. Don't go, oh, fuck, I'm thinking that again, or, oh my God, I've just done that again. It's like, have some grace in the way you treat yourself. And I think we are our own worst enemies most of the time. So it's when you can soften into yourself and go, this healing journey isn't going to be easy, but it's like, it's not, you can't encourage a kid to do something. It's encouraging yourself. You know what I mean? You're not going to do it through always constantly pointing out the shit they're doing wrong. It's really nurturing the things and how they have achieved or what they've done right, and backing them up, showing them in the sense of like, okay, that reaction wasn't the best way, but I still love you. And I think you have to build that with yourself. Okay, we kind of reacted, but it's okay. I'm aware of this now. Take a deep breath. Own if you need to own something, or just breathe it back in and just be really soft with yourself. And I find working with that, the observer of the mind, using the breath to calm the body, and then just coming back to a really simple center, I find that is the best way to start really activating and seeing when you're moving through life from that belief system. You'll see it straight away, because you'll notice, because you'll ask yourself and go, what am I actually feeling and reacting to this situation or circumstance or person? Create some space in sense of breath, grace, a moment before you keep going on with it. Because if your nervous system has reacted, your mind is overstimulated, you're always going to end up in the same place. It's like a pain body reaction. If we can really get into that and quieten it down and go, okay, I'm in a really uncomfortable space, but I'm going to show up for myself. to breathe it through my body so I can get some clarity on how to move forward, as in interact or, share what you need, heal that in yourself, in a sense, feel that in yourself. And then you're going to be able to communicate with everyone around you much easier in what you truly need.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think it's definitely about the quality of the questions you ask yourself. And that's really going to be the driver for the quality of the life that you have, how you show up and how you communicate with people, your relationships, what you do in the way of like how you present at work, in your job or your business. It's really comes down to the quality of those questions that you're going to ask yourself and being able to answer them really truthfully as well.
And laugh, like you're not going to get this shit right. It's like, it's such a, and the thing is we get into this space with ourselves and it's heavy sometimes, but you just got to sometimes take the piss out of yourself and go, oh, I did it again. Whoops. And you got to laugh. Like the more we can kind of activate that little part in us that there is joy, it is supposed to be fun. Yes, it sucks sometimes. Yes, it's uncomfortable. I'm going to cry, but don't be fearful of the happiness and the joy that comes through in the moments and also the heaviness. Just don't judge any emotion. Just let it move through you and be okay with it. Even anger, a lot of people want to hold on to anger because we've got all these ideas that it's not okay. It's not okay to dump it on everyone else around you, but you can feel angry. Figure out ways to direct it. Go and punch your pillow or really breathe it through your body, because most of the time underneath anger, there's sadness or there's a lot of heavy emotion. And sometimes we just need to really breathe it in a big way through the body and get to a space of, okay, that's what I'm feeling now. I don't have to always go straight to anger, which triggers my mind. I can just go, okay, I'm angry. Why am I angry? You're really pissing me off. And ask the feeling of why, instead of making it their fault. What is it in me? I always say, if I'm reacting, it's my shit. If they're reacting, it's theirs. Because then it gets a real clear way of going, okay, I need to do this for me. If they're reacting and you're not being an asshole, in the sense like you're not triggering someone out of manipulation, then it's like, then that it's theirs. And you can just sit in respect, in a sense, and go, okay, I don't need to prove myself, because you're obviously having an experience towards my energy. And sometimes people aren't going to understand you as you do this work. And it's okay. But you just got to be really aware of your own reactions to that.
Yeah. We're all human, having this human experience, which
means and it's
feeling all the feels, living through all the emotions and whatever the crazy world wants to throw at us. But thank you so much, Melissa. I really appreciated you coming on the podcast and being part of the Aveda Alchemist program and all of the things. Could you please share with everybody where they can work with you, where they can find you?
melissamelrose.com. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. I really feel integration for me is the key. And I do my workshops, Freedom Float at the moment, but I've always got workshops, but all my events and everything. And I'm working at doing some other different little retreaty day, half day things. But I just jump onto my website. That's probably the best way. I'm just switching it all around so it's very clear for people where to find me. But I really enjoy my coaching and doing one-on-one work, but my group stuff is just as powerful. So if you fear breath work and you are stuck, just come. And even if you don't allow it to be the full experience, I promise you, in that environment, you will be safe enough to feel seen in that. And the breath will only ever take you where you're ready to go. And that's the beautiful part about it. It will meet you in every moment, and it can take you to the deepest places in yourself. But it's the trust that you're going to build through really understanding your nervous system and your mind that will allow you to go to the depths of yourself and really clear out so you have an understanding of who you are, not who you think you are.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.